Welcome to another episode of Fun with Maps. I'm your host, Dan Hanson, and today we've got a real interesting one. The world map here, you all know the 7 continents, right? There's North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, and down here Antarctica. But what we're looking at today, many have called the 8th continent in the world because it's got some characteristics that make it unique from all the others. So we're talking about the island nation of Madagascar. And let me zoom in here a little. So here's Africa, right? This is the Indian Ocean. Okay. This is Madagascar. Okay. Now for some of you, Madagascar is going to be brand new, but for others, you've heard about it. You know, if you're a fan of the nature or animal shows, they're always showing episodes about lemurs, for example, which are endemic and unique to Madagascar, as well as we'll see a lot of other flora and fauna. Maybe you saw the 2005 DreamWorks movie, animated film called Madagascar, which I didn't see it, but I guess he had some good celebrity voices doing it, like Ben Stiller and Chris Rock. And here in where I live in Cleveland, Ohio, in the U.S., we have the Cleveland Botanical Gardens, and there are 2 huge glass houses in those gardens. One is dedicated to the rainforests of Costa Rica, but the other, cool enough, is dedicated to the spiny desert of Madagascar, which is down the south here, as we'll see. So if you ever get a chance to visit that, you should. So this is going to be a good one. Madagascar is pretty fascinating. It's really unique. And let's get started with this episode. I'm going to zoom in a little here. So the Republic of Madagascar here, it used to be called the Malagasy Republic. Malagasy refers both to language and the people. So obviously it's an island here. This is the Indian Ocean. India's up here, but this is all the Indian Ocean. Okay, and here's Madagascar. So it's an island, obviously, in the Indian Ocean. It's about 250 miles from this east coast of Africa here. So that's the largest big land mass that Madagascar is close to. So you'll also have a little close, the French territory of Réunion is over here to the east. The country of Mauritius is there. Okay, here's Mauritius, there's Réunion. And up here is the state of Comoros to the northwest. Okay, so Réunion, Mauritius, Comoros, but the closest big landmass here in Africa is Mozambique, the country of Mozambique, and this is the Mozambique Channel between Madagascar and Africa. Okay, so there's the Indian Ocean. Here is the prime meridian. Now you know that that's just what we declare as 0 degrees longitude, okay? Here is the equator, okay? So that's 0 degrees latitude. Now, just an interesting side note, so here is 0 longitude, 0 latitude. It's out in the South Atlantic Ocean here off the west coast of Africa. So that's 0, 0 with longitude and latitude. So here's the Tropic of Capricorn down here. So you can see that Madagascar is kind of on a level with half of Australia. As we follow along Capricorn, here's some of South Africa, Namibia and Botswana and all that. And then the southern part of Brazil, Paraguay, northern part of Argentina and Chile. So that's about where it is. Tropic of Capricorn right there. There's 0. Here's Greenwich up here, the 0 prime meridian. So here we have Madagascar all alone out here in the Indian Ocean, miles away from Africa, some small islands here, but really we're going to see why that's important, this map of it being so isolated out here. Let's zoom in. Okay, so as we zoom in here on a map, of course here's Africa, and here in green that's Madagascar. So here's Mozambique, and here's the Mozambique Channel in between, and we've got, you know, Reunion and Mauritius over here, and some of that. But this gives you some kind of perspective of here, Madagascar alone in the Indian island. It's about 230,000 square miles, which makes it the second largest island country in the world. Okay, Greenland is the largest island country, but it's the world's fourth largest island. Okay, so it's second largest island country, fourth largest island in the world. So for some perspective, if you know the United States, that's about 4 times the size of the state of Georgia, and just less than twice the size of Arizona. So that's the size of Madagascar there. So the nation of Madagascar comprises the island of Madagascar and some peripheral small islands around it. The islands are called Nosy, Barren, and Nosy various things. Nosy just means island in the Malagasy language. So let's zoom in even more here. So here's a better map, another CIA map, public domain. So you can see like Nosy Chesterfield, Nosy Barren, Nosy B, Nosy Santa Maria. Like I say, Nosy just means island in Malagasy. Up here is Comoros, which we talked about. Down here will be Reunion and Mauritius. But here's a good map of Madagascar. So along the length of the eastern coast, there's a narrow and steep escarpment containing much of the island's remaining tropical lowland forests. Now here's a fun with maps geography reminder. An escarpment, remember, is a long, steep slope, especially one at the edge of a plateau or separating areas of land at different heights. Okay, so that's on the eastern coast. Okay, to the west of this ridge is a plateau at the center of the island. That's about 2,500 to 5,000 feet above sea level, and these central highlands were traditionally the homeland of the Merina people and the location of their historic capital here, Antananarivo. So you can see that's the capital there, right in the central highlands there. Let's take a look at that for a second. So this is a good picture by a guy named Bernard Gagnon, Gagnon. Thank you, Bernard. Of Antananarivo. It's the political and economic capital of the country. In 2017, the population of the capital was about 1.4 million people. You know, these are the most densely populated parts of the island. You know, in the central highlands there. They're characterized by terraced rice-growing valleys lying between grassy hills and patches of the subhumid forests that formerly covered the highland region. Let's look at another nice picture from same guy, Bernard Gagnon. This picture of the capital, you can see it's got, in here is what they call Maha Masama Stadium. It's like a nice modern stadium, and Annecy Lake back here. It's really a nice picture and a really nice area to look at there. So let's go back to the bigger map. So here's the highlands, there's the capital. To the west of the highlands here, it's got increasingly arid terrain. It gradually slopes down into the Mozambique Channel here. Okay, and they've got swamps along the coast. Okay, so the western and southern sides, they lie in the rain shadow of the central highlands. That's where they have the dry deciduous forests, the spiny forests, the spiny deserts down here in the south. And they have lower population density, so they're better preserved than some of the rainforests in the east or in the central plateau. So it's worse terrain here, which means fewer people, which means it's better preserved. It's just how it happens. You know, there's a lot of harbors here on the west, protected harbors, but there's silting, and that's a major problem. You know, the sediment from the high levels of midland erosion carries it across the plains, and there's problems there. So, you know, it's got a strategic location, obviously, to Africa. through this Mozambique Channel. It's right there. But ocean currents make it difficult to travel. So the ocean currents here are further isolate the island. You know, over here in the Indian Ocean side, there's really not much. But over here, you got Africa a few hundred miles away, but the ocean currents make it difficult to travel. So they're completely, not completely, but they're really isolated. And this has resulted in the high rates of endemic plants and animal species. So here's a fun with maps fact. Approximately 90% of the flora and fauna on the island are found nowhere else in the world. That's amazing. About 90% of the flora and fauna on the island are found nowhere else in the world. So as we said, you know, most of the population lives on the eastern half here and in the central highlands and eastern coastline. So over here, not so much over here on the west. You know, they say Madagascar was one of the last major habitable land masses on Earth that was settled by humans. So, you know, there's some evidence that humans might have been there before in BC, 0 BC, but most of the large-scale settlement was between 350 and 550 AD. So they got settlers from present-day Indonesia coming this way, and they had, you know, in their canoes. The island attracted Arab and Persian traders as early as the 7th century, and they started getting migrants from Africa, which is so close, not till around 1000 AD. And as you can imagine, with all this, the Indian Ocean and the Mozambique Channel and all that, it was a haven and it was a pirate stronghold during the 17th and 18th centuries, a slave trading center. So they had a native kingdom there for a while. It's conquered by the French in 1896, made it a colony, and in 1960 they got their independence. You know, we've seen before when we looked at Chile and some other places, fun with maps, that it seemed that prehistorically there had been a few huge land masses that split off. You can see how South America kind of fits into Africa, and you can see how Madagascar might fit into here in Africa or over on the other side in India. Here's a fun with maps fact. It's believed there was a prehistoric breakup of a supercontinent which they call Gondwana, and that Madagascar split off from the Indian subcontinent about 80 to 90 million years ago. So this splitting off is another part leading to the isolation, leading to that biodiversity. As I said, over 90% of its wildlife is found nowhere else on Earth. So, in fact, let's take a look at that now. So, for example, the panther chameleon is native to the island of Madagascar. This is, when I was at the Cleveland Botanical Garden, they have a Madagascar exhibit I'll talk about in a minute. The docents there, this chameleon runs free there, and it's native to Madagascar, only lives there except for zoos and botanical gardens, places like that. And it's just an example of the biodiversity there. Another native animal is this cat-like carnival. It's called a fossa. This is a picture by a guy named L.T. Shears, CC by SA 3.0. So fossa are active both day and night. They're cathemeral. So you'd see this fellow out there both day and night. Let's look at a couple other pictures. I believe, like I said, I didn't see the movie, but I think the movie Madagascar, the fossa was the dangerous creature in it. So this is a drawing done in 1927 by illustrator Gustav Mutzel of a fossa, and you can see it does really resembles a cat. And you know, it's fossas, like many of the species, they're threatened, they're endangered. So the island of Madagascar, we've seen it's home to the fossa and the chameleons, and basically it's home to almost 25,000 species of wild animals. The giraffe weevil, many species of geckos, and most of them, a good number of them, are endangered species. So this is an island that really needs to be protected, or we're going to lose these species. Here's an endangered species called the Diademid sifaka, and this is from a national park in Madagascar. This is one of the many species of lemurs in Madagascar. Now, like I say, if you watch the nature shows or animal shows, you're going to see lemurs, you're going to see Madagascar there. One of the most popular is the ring-tailed lemur, which you can recognize. They've got that long black and white striped tail. Let's take a look. So as I say, one of the most popular is the ring-tailed lemur. You can recognize them by their long black and white striped tail. Okay, obviously good-looking animals. Look at those eyes. They love to leap and move around through the trees in Madagascar. The ring-tailed lemur is one of over 100 known species and subspecies of lemur, and they're found only in Madagascar. Okay, so this picture of these two ringtails is from TREEHGR, the English Wikipedia. So thanks for that. It's a great picture of the ring-tailed lemurs here from Madagascar. Now the name lemurs comes from the Latin lemurus, meaning ghosts or spirits. Okay, and you can tell they've got kind of that look. They're mammals of the order primates. They're divided into 8 families, around 100 existing species. So here's another lemur, and you can see where you might see a little ghost-like or spirit in that face and those eyes. Remember, lemurs are native only to this one small island of the world, only to the island of Madagascar. Most existing lemurs are small. They have this pointed snout, and they have the large eyes and the long tail. And they chiefly live in trees. They're arboreal, and are active at night, nocturnal. So let's look at one more lemur. So this is the gray mouse lemur. Nice picture. This is by Arjan Haverkamp. He originally posted it to Flickr. You know, they share a resemblance with other primates, but they did evolve independently from monkeys and apes because they're isolated there in this island. It's the whole key to Madagascar is its isolation. That's why the biodiversity is so strong there. So they evolved independently from monkeys and apes. Here's a fun with maps fact. Until shortly after humans arrived on the island around 2,000 years ago, the lemurs, there were lemurs there as large as a male gorilla. Can you imagine? Can you imagine walking along and having a creature like this as large as a male gorilla, human size, to deal with? So that's pretty incredible. In the absence of monkeys and other competitors, lemurs, these primates have adapted to a wide range of habitats and diversified into numerous species. So as of 2012, there were officially 103 species and subspecies of lemur, and almost all of them are classified as rare, vulnerable, or endangered. So, as I said, as a result of the island's long isolation from neighboring continents, Madagascar is home to various plants and animals found nowhere else on Earth. Approximately 90% of all plant and animal species found in Madagascar are endemic. So, this distinctive ecology has led some ecologists to refer to Madagascar as the 8th continent that we referred to in the beginning. And the island has been classified by Conservation International as a biodiversity hotspot. So we've seen the animals. Let's take a look at the plants. You know, more than 80% of Madagascar's almost 15,000 plant species are found nowhere else in the world, including 5 complete plant families. For example, 3/4 of Madagascar's 860 orchid species are found only on the island, as are 6 of the world's 9 baobab species. Now the baobab, let's take a look. And this is a picture from Frank Vasson, who originally put it on Flickr. It's near Marondava in Madagascar. These, in the U.S., you know, we pronounce these as baobab, B-A-O-B-A-B. In Malagasy, they might call it baobab. So you'll hear either one, but it's the same tree. The grassy plains that dominate that western landscape, they've got these patches of deciduous forests, and they've got these baobab trees, or baobab trees, whatever we should call them. In the south, of course, we said was the desert and spiny forests. So the island is also home to around 170 species of palm tree. That's 3 times as many as all of mainland Africa, which by comparison is so much huger. 165 of these palm species are endemic. And in case you don't remember, endemic just means native or restricted to a certain country or area. So these plants and animals are endemic to Madagascar. Means that they're native there, or they only grow or live in that certain area. Now, the thing that's important with plants, as we know, many native plant species are used as herbal remedies for a variety of afflictions. So, for example, drugs used to treat Hodgkin's disease, leukemia, and other cancers were derived from the Madagascar periwinkle. So it's so important to keep this biodiversity out there. You never know what's going to be saving someone's life or providing some great drug. So this is really a symbol of Madagascar. This is the Ravenella palm. Great photo by Talos, T-A-L-O-S. The Ravenella palm is the national symbol of Madagascar. It's found everywhere in the island. Its branches collect water. So some call it the traveler's tree, with the idea, if you're a thirsty traveler, you could find some water in these branches. They're facing that way. Now, in reality, the water inside is murky and black and smelly, and you need to purify it before you drink it. But it's you can tell how it would be named the traveler's palm. There's another plausible reason for its name. The fan tends to grow on an east-west line, so it's kind of a crude compass. The tree, the Ravenella, is featured in the national emblem of Madagascar, as well as the Air Madagascar logo. So, unique, endemic animals, plants. There's over 300 species of birds recorded on the island. 60% of those are endemic. There's more than 260 species of reptiles. Over 90% of those are endemic. Here's a fun with maps fact. The island is home to 2/3 of the world's chameleon species, including the smallest known. So, researchers have proposed that Madagascar may be the origin of all chameleons. So this is the picture I took in the Cleveland Botanical Gardens in the glass house, which is dedicated to Madagascar, the spiny desert. This is a docent there holding the chameleon. If I remember right, she named it Bob. So Bob the chameleon, very rare, very cool to have that here and be able to see it live and to hold it. This is a good time to tell you about the glass house in the Cleveland Botanical Garden. In the promo piece it says, quote, "It's a bizarre landscape that might have been designed by Dr. Seuss. If you hear the sound of chick pee 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 from above, it's probably the red-billed firefinch singing its distinctive tune." So when you go into the Cleveland Botanical Gardens, one area, permanent areas, are called glass house. And here you can see they have a map of the world here, and one area is for Costa Rica and the other is for Madagascar. Okay, so when we look at they have the spiny desert of Madagascar. Inside there's a world-class collection of endangered plants, exotic animals, including the chameleons. There's a yellow-throated plated lizard. There's 3 radiated tortoises. Here's a fun with maps fact. The radiated tortoise lives up to 50 years. So here's the tortoise I found in the botanical garden there, and they're just crawling around loose, and you can go and see them, and the docents are very knowledgeable, and it's really worth seeing. But this is, nowhere else in the world can you see this. outside of Madagascar in zoos and locations like this. So that's that radiated tortoise, and like I say, it lives up to 50 years. You'll also find one of the largest collection of the baobab trees under glass in the United States. It's often called the upside down tree. It's iconic. It's got massive trunks, hard-shelled fruits, and what the promotional material says, if you're lucky enough to see it in bloom, the most wonderful orange flowers you've ever seen. So I didn't get to see it in bloom. So you can see the trees. I didn't get to see it in bloom, as I said. I'd like to get back and see this incredible orange flowers. There's other really interesting, unique flora and fauna in this botanical garden glass house. There's one plant, the Alouita camosa, something like that, is adaptable. So it grows thorns both to ward off predators and stave off water evaporation. But it's not a cactus, even though it's prickly. And in fact, none of Madagascar's desert-dwelling plants are cacti. They're spiny succulents. So it's really worth a visit. If you're ever near Cleveland, go to Cleveland Botanical Gardens. Costa Rica's exhibit is just as cool. But this is Madagascar, and it's the spiny desert. And I actually have a walkthrough video posted on YouTube. If you search for Madagascar and Dan Hanson, you can see my video walkthrough of the exhibit. So I encourage you to go see this. And you can see in their sign, here's all of Madagascar. And the spiny desert that they feature is down here. The circled area is the spiny desert. So as we said, it's down here in the southern tip of the island of Madagascar. And as it says, the plants live with little rain. The southwest is a parched landscape with sporadic rainfall. During a rainy season of only a month or two, less than 12 inches of rain falls. The dry season often lasts for more than a year. So these the tortoise, the flora and fauna all have had to adapt to this spiny desert, and they've done a great job. So unfortunately, Madagascar's varied fauna and flora are endangered by human activity, as is usually the case. Since the arrival of humans about 2,300 years ago, Madagascar has lost more than 90% of its original forest. This is a picture by Diorit, D-I-O-R-I-T, showing the illegal slash and burn practice in the region west of Mauritania. What they do, this slash and burn is done on purpose. It's destruction of native forest habitat. It's widespread. It causes massive erosion. And this agricultural practice was imported to Madagascar by the earliest settlers, and they slash and burn, and fire will help enhance the crops and grasses for pasture, but they also produce smoke and degrade air quality, and there's all kinds of problems with it. So this is a NASA photo. And here's the map, and here's Mozambique, and here's the Mozambique Channel, and here's Madagascar. And you can see the number of fires are outlined in red. The pattern shows that they were probably deliberately set. Both over here in Africa and over here in Madagascar. They want to return nutrients to the soil and to clear the ground of unwanted plants, but so much of the once green island has been deforested because of the combination of slash and burn agriculture and some other less intensive burning that they use to augment grass growing for cattle grazing. So the fire's mostly burning grass or cropland, which is this tan area. So that's a shame. And also, of course, you have invasive species that have likewise been introduced by human populations. In 2014, they discovered the Asian common toad somehow got into Madagascar, and that's a relative of the toad species that's so severely harmed the wildlife in Australia since the 1930s. The researchers are saying the toad could wreak havoc on the country's unique fauna. So that's a problem. And then on top of that, there's droughts. Recently a severe drought struck the southern part of Madagascar, so they can't grow crops right now. These repeated dry spells have left farmers with no way to grow any food, and the UN World Food Program, says kids are dropping out of school, they've got to walk several kilometers to fetch water, and about 1.5 million people in southern Madagascar need emergency food aid. So, Madagascar is one of the least developed countries according to the United Nations, and quality of life remains low for the majority of the Malagasy population. So that's really too bad. And speaking of the population, we've looked at the flora and fauna, but what about the people? So it's thought the human settlement occurred between 350 BC and 550 AD, and it was Indian Austronesian people coming in their outrigger canoes from what's present-day Indonesia. And then around the 9th century, Bantu migrants crossed the Mozambique Channel here. So first they came in from the east, traveling west, and then later they came in from Africa there. They had a kingdom of Madagascar, ended in 1897 when the French absorbed it into their colonial empire. They regained independence in 1960, and both Malagasy and French are official languages. Here's a fun with maps fact. So the name Madagascar was first recorded in the memoirs of the famous Venetian explorer, 13th century, Marco Polo. And it's funny because it's a corrupted transliteration of the name Mogadishu, the Somali port. That's what Marco Polo had confused the island with. So he thought he was up at Mogadishu in Somali, but he's really at Madagascar, and so they named it that. It's kind of like Columbus and the Indians, thinking he had reached the Indies and naming the people Indians. So Marco Polo had the same kind of problem there. So there's a lot of great history of Madagascar, and I encourage you to research it more beyond the map here. But this is a French poster about the Franco-Hova War, and back in 1883, France invaded Madagascar, and that was called the First Franco-Hova War. So here's the island here, and you can see the French flag being planted here. It's a pretty cool poster. Okay. Here's a fun with maps fact. So Malagasy troops fought for France in World War I. Okay, and in the 1930s, Nazi political thinkers developed what they called the Madagascar Plan. They identified the island as a potential site for the deportation of Europe's Jews. Can you believe that? So some of those evil Nazi minds thought, okay, let's deport Jews down to this island of Madagascar. During the Second World War, the island was the site of the Battle of Madagascar between the Vichy French and the Allied Expeditionary Force. With the occupation of France during the Second World War, it kind of tarnished the prestige of the colonial administration there in Madagascar. So it kind of boosted the growing independence movement. And so there was an uprising in 1947, and the Malagasy Republic was proclaimed in 1958 as an autonomous state within the French community. And then there was a period of provisional government, a constitution in 1959, and full independence on June 26, 1960. So Madagascar does have a fascinating history. I encourage you to check it out. So this is the flag of Madagascar. It's the two equal horizontal bands of red on top and then green. It's got a vertical white band of the same width on the hoist side. And by tradition, the red stands for sovereignty, the green for hope, and the white for purity. So let's wrap up with a few fun with map facts. Madagascar is the world's principal supplier of vanilla, also cloves and ylang ylang, which I didn't know what it was, but it's some kind of oil. It supplies 80% of the world's natural vanilla. Here's a picture of a woman sorting vanilla in Sambava, Madagascar. It's by someone called Lemur Baby. Lemurbaby. So thank you for this good picture. So a number of traditional pastimes have emerged in Madagascar. This is Morangi. It's a traditional martial art. There's a guy named Henry Zoe Rakatondaramrana. Cropped this from Flickr. And this is a hand-to-hand martial arts combat. It's popular spectator sport in the coastal regions. While it's historically been for men, there are women doing this now too. So it looks kind of like UFC or some of the modern fighting that we have. In addition, they wrestle zebu cattle in many regions. In addition to sports, there's a wide variety of games that are played. And here's an interesting story. Among the most emblematic games that they play is this Fanarona. It's a board game that's widespread throughout the highland regions. And this is the starting position of Fanarona. Really popular. And a Fun with Maps fact, there's a folk legend that the succession of one of the kings was partially the result of the obsession that his older brother may have had with playing Fanarona, which was to the detriment of his other responsibilities. So, just like nowadays with kids with video games, so the older brother should have moved on to be king, but he was too busy playing this game, so the younger brother got to become the king. So, some things never change. So isn't Madagascar amazing? It all stems down to that isolation. You can tell from the map, it's so isolated. Even though it's closer to Africa, with the currents going, making it hard to get there, people didn't reach it. You've got that great eco biodiversity there. Hopefully that will continue. Hopefully the people will be able to thrive and get through the droughts and some of the problems they're having, and that the ecology can remain so vibrant and diverse, because we really need that. It's such a fascinating area. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Fun with Maps. If you did, please click on like to YouTube here, and consider subscribing to the channel so you never miss an episode. So until next time, I'm your host, Dan Hanson. Keep on having fun with maps.